A luxurious penthouse apartment in the heart of the city. The apartment is sleek and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the skyline. The decor is minimalist, with expensive art pieces adorning the walls, many of them created by the victim, Sophia Lane. Late evening. The city lights twinkle outside, but the apartment is dimly lit, creating an eerie contrast between the opulence and the grim events unfolding. A renowned artist in her mid-30s, known for her enigmatic and haunting paintings. She's found dead in her living room, lying in a pool of blood. Her death is sudden and violent, a stark contrast to her elegant and controlled persona. Sophia's mute housekeeper, a woman in her late 20s with a quiet, observant demeanor. She's the only witness to the crime, but is unable to speak due to trauma. A seasoned investigator with a no-nonsense attitude. He's the first to arrive at the scene and takes charge of the investigation. A young, empathetic police officer who tries to comfort Lila, but is met with silence. The scene opens with a 911 call from Lila, who is heard breathing heavily and making distressed sounds, but unable to speak. The call is traced to Sophia's penthouse, and police arrive within minutes. When Detective Hale and Officer Torres enter the apartment, they find Sophia's body lying on the floor near the fireplace. There's a deep wound on her head, and a blood-stained sculpture lies nearby, likely the murder weapon. The room is in disarray. A chair is overturned, and a shattered vase lies on the floor, suggesting a struggle. Lila is found crouched in a corner, her hands trembling and her face pale. She's clearly in shock, unable to communicate what happened. Officer Torres tries to calm her, but Lila remains silent, her wide eyes darting around the room as if expecting danger to reappear. Detective Hale begins his initial assessment of the scene. He notices a half-empty glass of wine on the coffee table and a man's jacket draped over a chair. He also finds a torn photograph of Sophia and her estranged husband, Daniel Lane, in the trash. The tension between the couple is evident even in the photo. As forensic investigators document the scene, Hale questions Lila, but she only shakes her head or writes brief, cryptic notes in response. One note reads, "He was here." When pressed for more details, Lila clams up, her fear palpable. The juxtaposition of the luxurious apartment and the violent crime creates a sense of unease. The dim lighting and the sound of the city outside add to the atmosphere. Lila's silence and the scattered clues, the torn photo, the man's jacket, hint at a deeper story, but the full picture remains unclear. Sophia's death is shocking, and Lila's trauma is heart-wrenching, drawing the reader into the emotional stakes of the story. A small, sterile interrogation room at the local police station. The room is dimly lit, with a single overhead bulb casting harsh shadows. A two-way mirror lines one wall, and a recording device sits on the table. Late evening, a few hours after the discovery of Sophia's body. The mute housekeeper, now visibly shaken and withdrawn. She communicates through written notes and gestures, but her responses are cryptic and evasive. The lead investigator, a gruff and no-nonsense detective who is determined to get answers. A younger, more empathetic officer who tries to bridge the gap between Lila and Detective Hale, brought in to assist with the interrogation due to Lila's trauma and inability to speak. The scene opens with Lila sitting at the interrogation table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She stares at the table, avoiding eye contact with Detective Hale, who sits across from her. Officer Torres stands nearby, offering occasional words of reassurance, while Dr. Carter observes from behind the two-way mirror. Detective Hale begins the interrogation with straightforward questions, but Lila only responds by shaking her head or writing brief notes on a pad of paper. Her first note reads, "I don't know." Hale grows increasingly frustrated, his tone becoming more aggressive. Officer Torres intervenes, suggesting they take a different approach. She slides a cup of tea across the table to Lila and speaks in a softer tone, asking about Lila's relationship with Sophia. Lila hesitates, then writes, She was kind to me. Dr. Carter enters the room and introduces herself, explaining that she's there to help Lila feel more comfortable. She asks Lila about the events leading up to the murder, but Lila's responses remain vague. She writes, "I heard arguing. Then everything went dark." Detective Hale presses for more details, asking about the man's jacket found in the apartment and the torn photograph of Sophia and Daniel. Lila's hands tremble as she writes, "He was here." When Hale asks who he is, Lila clams up, her fear palpable. Dr. Carter suggests taking a break, but Hale refuses, convinced that Lila is hiding something. He leans across the table, his voice low and intense. "If you know something, now is the time to speak up. A woman is dead, and you're the only one who can help us." Lila's eyes fill with tears, but she remains silent. Officer Torres steps in, gently guiding Hale out of the room. As they leave, Lila writes one final note. "I'm afraid." The small, sterile interrogation room amplifies the pressure on Lila, making her silence feel even more significant. Detective Hale's growing impatience contrasts with Lila's inability to communicate, creating a sense of urgency. Lila's fear and trauma are palpable, drawing sympathy from the reader, even as her silence raises questions. Ethan Cole's law office, located in a sleek high-rise building in the city. The office is modern and well-organized, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the skyline. Bookshelves lined with legal tomes and a large mahogany desk dominate the room. Early morning, a day after Daniel's arrest. The city is just waking up, and the sunlight streams through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. A brilliant but cynical defense attorney in his late 30s. He's known for his sharp mind and ruthless tactics in the courtroom. Despite his success, he's haunted by a past case that ended in tragedy. The estranged husband of Sophia Lane, a wealthy businessman with a commanding presence. He's been arrested for Sophia's murder but maintains his innocence. Ethan's sharp and loyal legal assistant, who helps him prepare for the case. The scene opens with Ethan sitting at his desk, reviewing the initial police report on Sophia's murder. Rachel enters, handing him a cup of coffee and a folder of additional documents. They discuss the case, and Rachel expresses her doubts about Daniel's innocence, citing his history of controlling behavior and the damning evidence against him. Ethan is interrupted by a call from Daniel, who has been granted one phone call from jail. Daniel's voice is calm but insistent. "I didn't kill her, Ethan. You have to believe me." Ethan remains professional, assuring Daniel that he'll do everything he can to defend him, but his tone is cautious. After the call, Ethan and Rachel dive deeper into the case. They review the crime scene photos, the torn photograph of Sophia and Daniel, and the man's jacket found in the apartment. Ethan's sharp eyes catch a detail Rachel missed, a faint smudge on the jacket's sleeve that doesn't match Daniel's description. Ethan decides to visit Lila Harper, the mute housekeeper and key witness, to assess her credibility. Rachel warns him that Lila hasn't spoken to the police, but Ethan is undeterred. "If she's the only witness, we need to know what she knows, or doesn't know," he says. The scene ends with Ethan gathering his coat and heading out the door, determined to uncover the truth. Rachel watches him go, a look of concern on her face. She knows this case will test Ethan in ways he hasn't been tested before. Ethan's office reflects his no-nonsense approach to his work, and the early morning light adds a sense of urgency. The conversation about Daniel's innocence and the details of the case create a sense of intrigue, leaving the reader wondering who is telling the truth. Ethan's determination and Rachel's concern add depth to their characters, hinting at the personal stakes involved in the case. Sophia Lane's penthouse apartment, shown in a fragmented, dreamlike sequence. The luxurious space is both familiar and distorted, reflecting Lila's fractured memory. The night of the murder, a few hours before the crime. The mute housekeeper, shown in her role as a quiet, observant presence in Sophia's life. The victim, portrayed as elegant but troubled, her demeanor hinting at the tension in her life. Sophia's estranged husband, whose presence looms large even before he appears on screen. A mysterious, unidentified person who plays a critical role in the events of the night. The scene begins with Lila's perspective as she moves through the penthouse, tidying up after Sophia. The apartment is quiet, but there's an undercurrent of unease. Lila notices small details, a half-empty glass of wine, a crumpled note in the trash, and the torn photograph of Sophia and Daniel. Sophia enters the room, her demeanor tense. She pours herself a glass of wine and sits by the window, staring out at the city lights. Lila approaches her, signing in ASL to ask if she's okay. Sophia forces a smile and responds, "Just another long day, Lila. Don't worry about me." The mood shifts when Daniel arrives unexpectedly. He and Sophia immediately begin arguing, their voices rising. Lila retreats to the kitchen but can't help overhearing snippets of their conversation. Sophia, "You can't keep controlling me, Daniel. I'm done with this." Daniel, "You think you can just walk away? After everything I've done for you?" The argument escalates, and Daniel grabs Sophia's arm, his voice low and threatening. Lila, hidden in the kitchen, watches in horror, but feels powerless to intervene. Suddenly, the power goes out, plunging the apartment into darkness. In the chaos, Lila hears a struggle, a crash, a scream, and then silence. She fumbles for a flashlight and cautiously makes her way to the living room. The beam of light reveals Sophia's lifeless body on the floor, a pool of blood spreading beneath her. Nearby, a shadowy figure stands in the darkness, their face obscured. Lila freezes, her breath caught in her throat. The figure turns toward her, and for a brief moment, their eyes meet. Then the figure vanishes into the shadows, leaving Lila alone with Sophia's body. The flashback ends abruptly, pulling us back to the present. Lila is in the police station, her hands trembling as she recalls the events. She writes on a notepad, "I saw him, but it wasn't Daniel." The fragmented nature of the flashback mirrors Lila's trauma, creating a sense of disorientation and dread. Sophia's vulnerability and Lila's helplessness add depth to their characters, making the crime feel personal and tragic. The shadowy figure's presence raises more questions than answers, deepening the mystery. Ethan's law office late at night. The room is dimly lit, with only the glow of a desk lamp illuminating stacks of case files, crime scene photos, and a laptop. The city lights outside the window create a muted backdrop. Around midnight, emphasizing Ethan's dedication and the high stakes of the case. The defense attorney, now fully immersed in the case. His determination is palpable, but the weight of the investigation is starting to show. Ethan's loyal legal assistant, who stays late to help him sift through the evidence. Though not physically present, her presence looms large as Ethan focuses on uncovering the truth about what she witnessed. The scene opens with Ethan poring over crime scene photos, his frustration mounting. He's been at it for hours, searching for something, anything, that could exonerate Daniel or point to another suspect. Rachel enters, carrying a fresh pot of coffee and a stack of documents. "You're going to burn out if you keep this up," Rachel warns, setting the coffee on his desk. Ethan barely looks up, muttering, "I'm missing something. There's a piece of this puzzle that doesn't fit." Rachel sits across from him and starts reviewing the documents she brought. Among them is a report from the forensic team detailing the items found in Sophia's apartment. Ethan's eyes land on a small notation. Security camera discovered in living room. Footage corrupted. Ethan sits up straight, his exhaustion replaced by sudden focus. A security camera? Why wasn't this flagged earlier? Rachel shrugs, equally surprised. It was hidden in a decorative frame. The techs didn't notice it until today. Ethan grabs his coat and heads for the door. "Where are you going?" Rachel asks. "To get that footage," he replies. If there's even a chance it's salvageable, I need to see it. At the police evidence locker, Ethan convinces the night officer to let him access the camera. He takes it to a tech-savvy friend, Miles, who runs a small electronics repair shop. Miles agrees to help, warning Ethan that the footage might be beyond recovery. As Miles works on the camera, Ethan paces nervously. Finally, Miles announces, "I got something, but it's not much." He plays the recovered footage on his computer. The video is grainy and fragmented, but it shows Sophia's living room moments before the murder. Ethan watches intently as Sophia and Daniel argue. The footage cuts out just as the power goes off, but in the final frames, Ethan notices something. A shadowy figure moving in the background, barely visible in the dim light. The figure isn't Daniel. It's someone else. Ethan's mind races. "This changes everything," he says. "If someone else was in the apartment that night, Daniel might not be the killer." The late-night setting and Ethan's relentless focus create a sense of urgency. The discovery of the footage feels like a breakthrough, but its incomplete nature leaves room for doubt. The shadowy figure's appearance shifts the narrative, opening up new possibilities for the case. A dimly lit park at night, shrouded in a light mist. The park is quiet and deserted, with only the sound of distant traffic and the occasional rustle of leaves breaking the silence. A lone bench sits beneath a flickering street lamp, late evening, adding to the atmosphere of secrecy and urgency. The defense attorney, determined to uncover the truth, but increasingly aware of the danger surrounding the case. The mute housekeeper, still traumatized by what she witnessed, but now more willing to communicate. Ethan's legal assistant, who accompanies him to the park but stays at a distance, keeping watch. The scene opens with Ethan and Rachel arriving at the park. Rachel stays near the entrance, scanning the area for any signs of trouble, while Ethan approaches Lila, who is sitting on the bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looks up as he approaches, her eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. Ethan sits beside her and speaks in a calm but urgent tone. "Lila, I know you're scared, but I need you to trust me. I've seen the security footage from Sophia's apartment. I know someone else was there that night, someone who wasn't Daniel." A packed courtroom in the city courthouse. The room is formal and imposing, with high ceilings, wood-paneled walls, and a stern judge presiding over the proceedings. The gallery is filled with reporters, curious onlookers, and a few familiar faces from earlier in the story. Mid-morning, with sunlight streaming through the courtroom windows, creating a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere. The defense attorney, sharp and determined, but visibly feeling the weight of the case. The defendant, sitting stoically at the defense table, his future hanging in the balance. A formidable opponent, confident and methodical in her pursuit of a conviction. The key witness, brought to the stand to testify. Her mute status adds a layer of complexity to her testimony. A no-nonsense judge who keeps the proceedings tightly controlled. Ethan's legal assistant, sitting in the gallery, offering silent support. The scene opens with Prosecutor Hayes delivering her opening statement. She paints Daniel as a controlling and violent husband, presenting the torn photograph, the man's jacket, and the blood-stained sculpture as evidence of his guilt. Sophia Lane was a woman trying to escape a toxic marriage, Hayes declares, and Daniel Lane couldn't let her go. Ethan's opening statement is calm, but forceful. He emphasizes the lack of direct evidence tying Daniel to the murder and hints at the possibility of another suspect. "The truth is not always what it seems," he says. And in this case, the truth has been hiding in the shadows. The prosecution calls its witnesses, the forensic expert who analyzed the crime scene, a neighbor who heard arguing from the apartment, and a colleague of Sophia's who testifies about her troubled marriage. Ethan cross-examines each witness, skillfully poking holes in their testimony and planting seeds of doubt in the jury's minds. Then, Lila is called to the stand. The courtroom falls silent as she approaches, her nervousness evident. The judge explains to the jury that Lila will communicate through written notes and a sign language interpreter. Prosecutor Hayes begins her questioning, but Lila's responses are brief and evasive. When Hayes presses her about what she saw, Lila writes, "I saw him, but it wasn't Daniel." The courtroom erupts in murmurs, and the judge calls for order. Ethan seizes the opportunity, rising to cross-examine Lila. He asks her to describe the shadowy figure she saw that night. Lila hesitates, then writes, "He was tall, wearing a dark coat. I couldn't see his face." Ethan then presents the recovered security footage, playing the grainy clip that shows the shadowy figure in the background. "This man," Ethan says, pointing to the screen, "is the real killer, and he is not my client." Prosecutor Hayes objects, arguing that the footage is inconclusive, but the damage is done. The jury looks intrigued, and the tension in the courtroom is palpable. The courtroom setting amplifies the tension, with every word and gesture carrying weight. Lila's testimony is heart-wrenching, and Ethan's determination to uncover the truth adds depth to his character. The security footage and Lila's testimony shift the narrative, raising new questions about the case. Ethan's law office, late at night. The room is cluttered with case files, crime scene photos, and a whiteboard covered in notes and diagrams. The city lights outside the window cast a faint glow, but the office is primarily lit by a single desk lamp. Late evening, emphasizing the urgency and intensity of Ethan's investigation. The defense attorney, now fully immersed in the case and determined to uncover the truth. Ethan's loyal legal assistant, who has been helping him piece together the evidence. Though not physically present, her role as the key witness looms large as Ethan uncovers the truth. The scene opens with Ethan pacing his office, his mind racing as he reviews the evidence. Rachel sits at the desk, sifting through a stack of documents. "There has to be something we're missing," Ethan mutters, frustration evident in his voice. Rachel holds up a document. "What about this? Sophia's financial records show large unexplained deposits over the past year. Where was that money coming from?" Ethan's eyes narrow as he takes the document. If Sophia was involved in something illegal, it could explain why she was killed. He starts cross-referencing the deposits with other evidence, including the torn photograph and the man's jacket found at the crime scene. Suddenly, Ethan's eyes widen. "Wait a minute. The jacket, it's not Daniel's, it's too big for him. And look at this photo." He points to a grainy image from the security footage, zooming in on the shadowy figure. "That's not just any jacket. It's a uniform. A security uniform." Rachel leans in, her eyes widening. "You think Sophia was involved with someone connected to a security firm?" Ethan nods, his mind racing. Not just someone. A private security company tied to organized crime. Sophia must have been laundering money for them. And when she tried to back out, they silenced her. Rachel pulls up a list of local security firms on her laptop. There's one that stands out. Blackwater Security. They've been linked to several high-profile cases, but nothing's ever stuck. Ethan's expression hardens. "That's our connection. Sophia knew too much and they couldn't risk her talking." He grabs his coat. "We need to find Lila. If she saw the killer, she might be able to identify him." As Ethan and Rachel prepare to leave, Ethan's phone rings. It's an unknown number. He answers, and a distorted voice says, "Drop the case, Cole. Or you'll end up like Sophia." The line goes dead, and Ethan stares at the phone, his resolve hardening. "They're scared," he says, "which means we're close." The late-night setting and the threatening phone call heighten the sense of danger. The discovery of Sophia's connection to organized crime shifts the narrative, revealing the true stakes of the case. Ethan's determination and Rachel's support add depth to their characters, making the revelation feel personal. A quiet cafe in the city, bathed in the soft glow of morning sunlight. The cafe is cozy and inviting, with the hum of quiet conversation and the aroma of coffee filling the air. A few weeks after the trial and the resolution of the case. The defense attorney, now reflecting on the case and its impact on his life. The mute housekeeper, who has begun to rebuild her life after the traumatic events. Ethan's loyal legal assistant, who joins him for coffee and provides a sense of grounding. The scene opens with Ethan sitting at a corner table in the cafe, sipping a cup of coffee and staring out the window. He looks tired but at peace, the weight of the case finally lifted from his shoulders. Rachel joins him, carrying 2 fresh cups of coffee. "You look like you've been sleeping better," Rachel says, sliding into the seat across from him. Ethan smiles faintly. "I have, but it's strange, you know? After everything that happened, it's hard to just go back to normal." Rachel nods, her expression thoughtful. "You did everything you could, Ethan. Daniel's free, and the truth came out. That's what matters." Ethan's gaze shifts to the door as Lila enters the cafe. She's carrying a small communication device, a recent addition to help her express herself more easily. She spots Ethan and Rachel and approaches their table, a tentative smile on her face. Ethan stands to greet her. "Lila, it's good to see you. How are you holding up?" Lila types on her device, and a robotic voice speaks for her. "I'm okay, still scared sometimes, but better." Ethan nods, his expression softening. "You were brave, Lila, braver than most people would have been in your situation." Lila types again. "Thank you for believing me, and for helping me." Rachel smiles warmly. "You helped us too, Lila. Without you, we never would have uncovered the truth." The 3 of them sit together, sharing a quiet moment of camaraderie. Lila types one final message. Sophia would be glad it's over. Ethan looks out the window again, his mind drifting to the case and the lives it touched. "It's not just about closure," he says quietly. "It's about making sure something like this doesn't happen again." As the scene closes, Ethan, Rachel, and Lila sit in comfortable silence, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. The cafe buzzes with life around them, a stark contrast to the darkness they've left behind. The peaceful setting and the characters' quiet conversations create a sense of closure and new beginnings. While the case is resolved, the emotional scars remain, adding depth to the characters. The camaraderie between Ethan, Rachel, and Lila underscores the theme of resilience and the power of truth. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.